And we're live on Book Chat Live this evening, afternoon, morning, depending on where you are in the world. So welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about books.
Yes. So let's, for a few seconds, and well, maybe a minute before the advertisers start the show, how did you end up becoming such a lover of books and writing your own book?
I'm an only child. Do I need to say anything more? I'm an only child. I was born in a very small village. We moved to Toronto when I was 6, but I learned to read pretty early to amuse myself. And I love reading. My mom and my dad are both avid readers, so it was just part of our culture to do that.
Okay, shall we go on to the first book? Talk about the first book. Right. The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. So, why did you pick this book?
Oh, this one was a life changer for me. It was a book that I read when I was in my early 20s, and it opened me up to this whole new world of like spiritual connection with people. The thing that really popped out the most in this was the idea of coincidences not being coincidences, that they were really synchronicities, that we were meant to meet these people and have a certain kind of conversation that would take us along our journey. And it was just life-changing. It made me open up my mind to a completely different world.
Okay, so this is how would you describe this book then? Is this kind of, it sounds a little bit woo-woo, to use a technical
expression. It is a little bit woo-woo. It is it's a parable, and it's an adventure journey too, though. So it's interesting, you want to know what's going to happen with the characters.
Yeah.
It's so well written. You can tell he was really inspired when he was writing it. And there's a whole series of books afterwards that follow. Yeah. But that one was the one that really hit me most and opened up everything. So yeah, it's more of like for people who enjoy a spiritual journey, but still want a journey. They still want a story to it.
Okay, so is it fiction or non-fiction?
Yeah, it's fiction. It's fiction.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But it's like a parable, you were saying. Yes. So yeah. Okay, well, that's interesting. Should we go to the next book? Right. The Lost Wife by Alyson Richman. Is it Richman?
Richman, yeah. So fantastic. I love historical fiction. Yeah. And I go through these waves of being really attracted to certain eras. This one is set in World War II. And I think it's the fact that it's coupled with World War II, and my favorite place on the planet is Prague, and it's set in Prague. So I could picture myself in the story, and it's such a lovely story that you're not sure how it's going to unravel. You actually start at the end of the story, and then it brings you to show you how the characters got there. So it's about a husband and wife who are Jewish, and they're separated at the beginning of the Nazis coming into Prague. Yeah. And they think that the other one's dead. So they move on with their life after the war, have their own families, and then they end up meeting up again when their grandchildren get married. So, yeah, it's so good. It's so good. And she's so good at describing the different places in and around Prague that I was like all dreamy that I was back there again.
Yeah. Yeah, Prague's lovely. I've been there since 2001, actually. So
okay.
It's nice to read a book about Prague. All right.
Good.
Seth Speaks by Jane Roberts.
Yeah. So this is you thought Celestine Prophecy was woo? Here we go. So I mean, it's right up my alley. I'm a trance channeler. So this was my first experience with trance channeling. I read it when I was a teenager. It's an old book. And it's funny because the way that they have the pictures now for it
Yeah.
are much more appealing. I actually have the original copy
Yeah.
there. It's a little bit scary looking, that face.
Yeah.
But it's the story of this woman, Jane Roberts. It's not a story, but Jane Roberts, her and her husband were using a Ouija board, and a spirit came through and then started speaking through her, and it freaked me out. I was so scared, but I was fascinated at the same time.
Yeah.
I wanted to know more. So Seth shares a lot of wisdom, but I probably didn't take it in so much because I was a teenager at the time. But that's the first kind of exposure to trance channeling. So most people that are into that trance channeling world, or like are interested in it right now, would know about Abraham Hicks. Esther Hicks channels Abraham. Seth was before Abraham, so I thought I would choose that one instead of an Esther Hicks one.
Okay, so is Seth the person who was being channeled, so to speak?
Yeah, that's the spirit that's being channeled. Yeah. Yeah.
So would you say that this is a good book for somebody interested in channeling, or is this for just general people? Like
general people? Yeah. As long, I mean, there's a certain sense of needing to be open to the idea of trance channeling, and trance channeling just being that you're allowing energy to speak through you. So, you know, if that's something that you believe is possible, then you'd be more open to taking in the wisdom of it. But yeah, it's very interesting. It's easy to read, and it's a very interesting way to be open to it. It's very different in the world now, and the cultural of all of this now, because I think this was the 60s or the 70s when this was put together. So yeah, it's very, very different experience now. People don't really use the Ouija boards and all that kind of stuff anymore. So I mean, some people do, but not for trance channeling.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Only Love is Real by Brian Weiss.
Yeah, Dr. Weiss.
MD.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
He is a psychiatrist, and this book is the one that follows the story of two of his patients that he was doing past life regression therapy with. Ended up that they had past lives together, and the story of they didn't know each other in this lifetime, and they just kept kind of crossing paths. And the story, not the story, but the session notes basically put together the book, and it was really. It was my first reading of past life regression as a therapy tool. And before I started fully focusing on intuitive work, this is what I did beforehand. I was a hypnotherapist. So that was the thing that triggered me to go study hypnotherapy, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you into am I going to be hypnotized in the middle of this show?
I promise I won't.
Okay, right. Let's go on to the next one. The Power of Intention by Wayne W. Dyer.
Yeah, a fantastic read. So in North America, I'm in North America, I'm in Canada. So in North America on PBS, on the public broadcasting system, whenever they were doing their membership pledges, he would always go on there and do a whole big ta-da for them to help raise money. And he started speaking a lot about intentions. And then this book came out, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. Just instead of goal setting, because goal setting never really jived with me, but this idea of setting intentions and using the emotion to kind of activate those intentions, and then just the whole process that he went through in it. That was a book that really changed the trajectory of my goal setting after that, to the point that one of the people that he wrote the book with is from Toronto, and I sought her out and made her I signed on with her to be for her to coach me, and that was really great work, because we got even deeper into the book with that.
Yeah, it's funny because I look up all the like all the authors to see if they got Twitter or Instagram accounts, and he's still got one, even though he's been dead for about 5 years. And I like to look at the details, like, oh yeah, essentially, people are still like, so he's tweeting from beyond the grave. Which
yeah, exactly right. Fun fact: we have the same birthday.
Oh, okay.
Very different years.
Yeah. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Paulo Coelho. He's from Brazil, so he speaks Portuguese.
Yeah.
This book is kind of funny that it's on my list because the first time I read it, I hated it. I couldn't even finish it. Couldn't even finish it. So that was about the same time that I read the Celestine prophecy. Yeah. And I think I was still stuck in the energy of the Celestine prophecy. But fast forward quite a few years later, we're having a dinner party with a bunch of friends, and we were talking about what books had an impact on our spiritual journeys. And so it was divided straight down the table pretty much on half were Celestine prophecy and half were Alchemist. So we challenged each other to read the other's favorite book and get back together and talk about it. Yeah. And we all convinced each other of the books. And now it's one of those books that when I need some inspiration, I'll pick up and open to a random page. And there's a quote there always that is so perfect for my timing. And I really feel like it's a book that's great for people who like to do inspirational memes. There's like forever list of things that you can make memes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like this book was mentioned on the first show I did, first interview show I did, as the person who he recommended 2 other books by Paulo Coelho. And I think it was The Alchemist was too hard for her to read. So why was it hard for you to read then? And was it just a case of you have to power through it, or was it that you need to be in the right place to read this book?
I needed to mature a little bit more.
Yeah.
The first time I read it, I wasn't as well traveled as I was the second time I read it, and I think there's an element of that. Because it's set in Spain and it's set in Morocco, and it just wasn't something that I resonated with at the time. But then later on, after some travels, I resonated more. So I think there's a bit of that.
Yeah. So it's an interesting experience thing more than anything. Okay. And the next one is The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Mm-hmm. So why this book?
This is a great mindset book. So having a background in NLP and hypnosis, mindset work is, I'm pretty good at it. So I'm quite trained at it. So when I got this book, it was all the blind spots that I hadn't really seen for myself. It had a big impact in that. And I did make a big leap afterwards. It's all about, it's talking about your upper limit. Like you only take yourself to a certain point and then you'll do something to sabotage and bring yourself back down a few notches. And I could see where those points were for me. So that helped me kind of break free from that and step into a bigger pond, basically.
Okay. So like it's, if you're, well, I suppose this is true for virtually everybody, but if there's some big thing that you're thinking about doing and you're not quite in that position, this is a sign of book to push you forward. Is that the right sort of way of considering it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, right. And the next one is Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse.
Yeah, so good. This one I read in high school in English class.
Yeah.
So I had taken a special program that took us, I'm showing my age here. I was in high school when the Berlin Wall fell. And shortly afterwards, we had a big trip to go visit the former Eastern Bloc countries and see what life was like for them there. That's where I was first exposed to Prague. And I don't know. I loved it. It was more experiential learning, and I just wanted to keep on to that flavor. So I signed up when we came back. I signed up to take another English unit at that school, and it was all about finding yourself. That was the theme of the course, and this was one of the books that we read. And this was my first exposure to Hinduism and Buddhism, which later, when I went to university, I ended up minoring in religious studies with a focus on those two religions. So it was a path setter for me.
Yeah,
really good book.
So is it non-fiction or is it fiction? What's the gist of the book for us?
Loosely based on Siddhartha's life. And so he's the beginning of Buddhism, right? So so that was obviously Hermann Hesse must have done a lot of research on that. I don't know how much of it is real. So, like a really good story that way, you don't know how much is really real, but definitely key points in it were following his life.
And was it the religious element, that made his life interesting to you, or was it just the way it was written, or what kind of appealed to you about the book, or was it just you were in the right state of mind to accept that book at that point?
It's his story, his life story of really going from a place of absolute privilege to then letting go of everything and ultimately finding enlightenment. I found that to be really inspiring, especially as somebody who didn't quite fit what was expected of me. And so I felt like a real connection with the character, and then knowing that was the potential for something big that would happen, even centuries later, we still experience his wisdom. So it was inspiring, especially as a teenager. I think I was 17 or something like that when I took it.
Okay, right, on to the next one. The Rose Code by Kate Quinn. So, why this book?
Another World War II historical fiction.
I
couldn't just choose one. I couldn't just choose one. This was hard to come. I'm just going to say, as somebody who loves books so much, that it was hard to come up with the list. So this one was, I just found it so fascinating to hear this. It's a story about the code breakers at Bletchley Park, and just amazingly written in such a way that kept me so captivated. I mean, Kate Quinn is an amazing writer, and I don't know. That one was one that I wanted to read immediately afterwards to see what I missed along the way, because I felt like there was something, and maybe I missed some points. And so even though it's a really thick book, I read it twice in a row.
So is it like a fictional account, or is it historical? I mean, what does it talk about, and what without giving the book away, what is the Rose Code?
The Rose Code was one of the codes that they were breaking codes of the German U-boats, and this ultimate code that they had such a hard time breaking, they ended up breaking, which was called the Rose Code. It's loosely based on the story of the women of Bletchley Park that worked on breaking the codes. And one of the, I guess as a Canadian too, it was nice to see that there was a Canadian character in there. So, it was believed that she was the girlfriend of Prince Philip, and, there's all that story going on at the same time. So, so it's loosely based.
Okay, and I've put a bonus book at the end, so which is Intuitive Languages by this Nicole Meltzer person. So
Meltzer,
So talk about your book. Why did you write it? Is it your first book, or is it later?
Technically, I wrote another book, but we don't talk about that one.
Oh, right.
if you look on Amazon, you'll see
Yeah.
it. Yeah, so intuitive languages is, I trans-channeled it. There's a collective of energies that I trans-channel called the Trilumini, and they are just the epitome of unconditional love energy.
Yeah.
And so we wrote this together. It was a weird experience to write because they had to learn how to not only come in and speak through me, but type through me. So that was fun. Yeah, it took a while to complete it. Basically, they want to present to people that everyone is intuitive, that you have access to it. It's really quite simple. And once you have that in place, then you will always catch the messages as they're coming to you in any moment. So they wanted to make that practical. So their ultimate goal is to create basically a movement of unconditional love across the planet. So this is the first step, is the intuitive languages.
Okay, so well, obviously
probably the bluest on your list.
Sorry?
Yes, but it's also very practical. Honestly, it's so
well,
easy.
that's what I was going to say. Like,
Yep.
Obviously you channeled all of this stuff, but it sounds like it's a bit of a to-do,
Yes,
how-to book, I suppose.
it is. It is.
It's a self-help book channeled from
yes,
intuitive man. Is that kind of a good description of it?
Yes, that's exactly it. It's there's building blocks, and it's interesting because like my background is more logical. Like I started in research before I even went into any healthcare. And so that whole like using my left brain tendencies helps them to construct it and be able to put it into really easy steps on building your language. So you start with your connection to environment, then you move into your connection with unconditional love, and then you move into the clair families, which are the clairs are your ways that you receive information. So you put it together, and then it's just your starting point in being able to be in communication with the universe at any point in time. So it's easy, simple, and you can put it into practice right away, and it makes decision making so much quicker.
So what did you learn from this book then? Because they say it was channeled through you, but what things did you learn that you were surprised for what came out then?
There was a couple of different clairs. So most people, if they're in conversation about clairs, they would know clairvoyancy or clairaudiency, which is seeing or hearing. They had a couple of new terms. They had clairsomation, so like when you start to feel things in your body, you know, like you get the goosebumps or something like that, you know, on your arm, or what else? Then there was claircognizant. I kind of had heard something about that before, which is a knowing. And then clair emotion, or clair emotive, which is different than an empath. So it's getting the message through emotions. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. I never thought of that before. I just always thought you were just connecting with somebody. I didn't realize that it could actually be a message too. So so they took us through that process, and uncovering those specific clairs were really quite interesting to hear some new terms. And then also seeing how it all comes together, because I had no idea where they were going with it. Like started writing about the environment. I'm like, what? What does this have to do with anything? So the whole process itself was really very fascinating and informative, and stretched me as a control enthusiast. Really stretched me.
How did you cope with editing this book? Did you get the book edited, or was it all like you were trying to preserve what came out?
That was a fun process. Actually, my editor has been on your show before. Debbie Keevan is she is the head honcho at Highlander Press. So that's who published the book. And she was beautiful with the whole process. She really kept with the integrity of it. and would be like in conversation, she'd be like, okay, here are my suggestions. Take it back to them and see what they think. You know, and we could have this conversation. It was good.
So that must have been a little bit weird to do kind of an editorial process with. What would you describe them as, like spirits, or like, or is that a bit too on the woo-woo?
They're energies. Like, I think, well, the first time I experienced them was actually, I was on a cruise ship, and they were like 3 beams of light that came down. That's how I saw them. And then I heard a voice in my head saying who they were, like introducing themselves as who they were. And it just kind of started from there. But that's how I've experienced them, as like 3 beams of light, hence the Trilumini, I guess. Maybe that's why. But that's the name that they gave themselves. So
okay. Well, I think okay. Well, actually, I'll ask you a question that I normally ask people on the Amazon portion. Might do a little bit more that we recorded but elsewhere, which was a platform that rhymes with lube, but I'm probably not allowed to say it on. If you had to pick one of these books, I'll probably exclude your last book because it's your book. If you had to give one of these books to people, just like, would there be one book you would give them? And if there's a thought process involved in selecting a book, what would that process be? So, like, it's you meet somebody and then you've got a selection of one of these. You've got all of these books available, as many copies as you want, and you can give them a copy of the book. So, which would be the copy of the book you would give them first? And if it's not clear, what would your thought process be in terms of selecting that book?
Yeah, that's really good.
Long-winded.
That's a really good question. I think we'll start with the thought process. I would look at where they're at, like what it is that, why have our paths crossed? And so what is it that they're experiencing right now? And then I'd say either the Celestine prophecy or the Alchemist based on that. I would say
Did you meet up again with the people who you challenged to read the Celestine prophecy? And you were reading The Alchemist, and did you come to a consensus as which was the quote better book?
No, we realized in discussion about it that really it depended on what you were needing at the moment. So if you really need a story, then Celestine prophecy is the best bet. But if you're looking for those little hits of wisdom, like short bites, then The Alchemist would be better. So but very different settings, right? Like, and what is your exposure, right? So where The Alchemist is Spain and North Africa, then the Celestine prophecy is in Peru. So very different cultures.
And if you like, the person who's you're possibly offering these books to has already read both of those books and knows thoroughly into it, what will be the next book you pick? I'm not going to force you to go through all of them, but
next one.
The Big Leap, or
Sahara? You know what? I think The Power of Intention, actually.
Oh, okay.
I think everybody can use that.
Yeah,
it's a good book.
Okay, well, I'm going to conclude the Amazon Live portion here, but don't wander off because I want to talk to you a bit for maybe a longer non-live portion that I put somewhere else. So thanks for all the people watching on Amazon Live. Right, so the end streaming, and it's on there. Okay, so now we can talk slightly less censored, but not, well, it's still on YouTube. I'm very interested in the whole kind of spirit world and all that stuff. It's funny because I wouldn't say I'm that woo-woo at all, but I seem to end up having lots of conversations with woo-woo people because I find it very interesting.
It's interesting.
Well, it is interesting. I normally ask people about what they do, but you kind of talked about a lot about what you do. But what was you were saying you were on a cruise ship when you were contacted by these spirits, the rest of it, but was that the very first time that you kind of thought that you had an encounter with the spirit world, or with I don't know, like the non-conformist world, so to speak.
Right,
What was the point where you were kind of first thought, oh yeah, I'm in touch with different stuff?
Yeah. So as a kid, I used to have tea parties with my spirit guides. Like I said, only child. And yeah, my mom would come into the room and she'd be like, who are you talking to? And I couldn't understand why she couldn't see them. But so there was that.
Yeah.
I've never been one for medium work, like talking to those who have crossed over. That's not my forte. I can do it, but it's not my forte. I have trans-channeled a couple of other spirit entities, energies. I don't know how to describe them exactly because there's no real tangible, kind of thing to pull in. But then meditation. So I teach meditation and how to decipher messages through that. And that I use more than anything, more than being in contact. It's more following the synchronicities, following the metaphors as I see them. So it's interesting that you said that you're not woo-woo, because I find that I tend to be gravitating towards the people who are maybe a little bit more logical, but they have that like inner knowing and maybe second guess it. And then, I don't know, it's like a permission slip to embrace your intuitive side. It doesn't make you, in the other extreme. And I find that those are the people that are usually drawn to my programs and stuff. So yeah, logical people can be intuitive too.
Yeah, well, I mean, do you honestly think they are like dead people, so to speak, or do you think it's more like they're spirits of the whole kind of universe, sort of? Like they're more entities that are around us rather than just person from the Tudor times who's trying to talk to you about like their life when they were in the battlefield, sort of thing.
Right. I've experienced it all. I've experienced, people who have crossed over that will speak with me, but I've also experienced seeing or sensing other energies that it feels like they're from somewhere else, or they're from a different plane, or maybe a different dimension. I don't know. I don't know the specifics of it, but I can kind of pick up on that. I do believe we have spirit guides, or some people call them angels, that travel with us. I do believe that. And then I do believe that you can talk with your higher self or your true self and really get a more bird's eye view of where you're headed in life. And I feel like that's very practical. And that aspect of ourselves is the part that never dies, right? So being able then to access any of the wisdom from the universe through them that can help us, because what is the point if it's not going to help you in this life, right? That's my guiding factor for all of it. Like, it's got to be practical. So to a long-winded answer, yes, I do believe that there's all of those different
Tick got all the options on the floor.
I do, yes.
So like, you've written this book that was channeled in, and you do a lot of work. Tell me what you do on a day-to-day basis then. Like, what is your main thing? Because it sounds like you're kind of got your fingers in a lot of stuff in the intuitive world, so to speak.
Yeah.
What would a normal, I wouldn't say what a normal day would, but what would your ideal day be, and what would your normal day be?
I have a program. It's a membership program where I help people tap into their intuition and understand also the energies of the moon phases and how to ride out those energies. It's called Flow. And so that's my main focus in my business. I do some one-to-one work as well. And I have a program that's based on the book Intuitive Languages as well. That's my focus now. I used to be a massage therapist and hypnotherapist. My hands got tired and COVID hit, and it didn't make sense to go into the clinic anymore. So I just said, it's time to like really fully be in the intuition and kind of step out with it. there's a lot of people in my life that were a little shocked by it because they had seen me more as the analytical person, the person who did research. And yeah, that's okay. I get to be fully me now.
Yeah. So have you've done past life regression on people?
Yeah.
Is that when you're doing that, you're hypnotizing them? Do they always have a past life? Do they have multiple past lives? Or I mean, I don't know why. I mean, and I don't know how many of these you've done, but is it like you could always find a past life, or there's some people it's just their first life? And kind of
it's interesting. So I haven't done them in practice with people. My husband is in business with me, and he focuses on that. Sorry, I need some water. And he's never found a point where they can't go back to multiple lives.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, which is very cool. Maybe you're open to it more after you've had a few. I don't know what the answer would be to that. You know, it's a possibility. And also, he frames it in a way that kind of gets people off the hook if they're feeling a little nervous about the idea, is that it can be your mind just finding a creative way, finding a story to deal with an issue. And that's okay too, as long as you're getting what you need, right?
Yeah. So sometimes it's more of a fictional experience for somebody, like, well, but still productive in as much as it's telling you something.
Right. Yeah. And hypnosis is different than a reading that way because you get to experience it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, as I say, I find it kind of, well, because I'm very much of, and I will eventually get around to writing a book about how I think that everybody's got a lot of this kind of, got this mentality that science and everything knows so much, there's so little to learn, but actually I think we're barely scratching the surface of what we can learn about anything, like especially in the modern world, because it's like we just don't live long enough in one life to be able to learn even scratch the surface of what's possible to know about. So I never want to preclude anything, really. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So if people want to, let's say they've been in, like, they've seen this, they've read your book, well, not really your book, but your spirit entity book, and they want to find out more, or they want you to work with them to help them understand their intuition, and the rest of it. How do they get in touch with you, and what sort of like where can they talk to you?
Yeah, NicoleMeltzer.com. It's easy. And when you read the book, you can, there's a download of a workbook that you can get from my website for free, and work through the lessons with it, make it really practical. Use it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to end this broadcast, and I keep forgetting to do to create a little end show graphic, but I haven't got one. So I'm just going to say goodbye to everybody watching on YouTube. Thanks so much for being the guest today, Nicole.
Thank you.